Welcome back, everybody. I love doing this program. I get to meet some of the most fascinating people. Today, I am bringing you a story with the help of H.J. Corning. I get to call her Holly because we just made friends. So Holly is going to be here and she's going to read this great story for you called The Trees Said Hello. And I want to give everybody a little bit of a listener advisory. There is some mature language in this reading, so if you have little ears nearby, you might want to preview this episode before you let them listen. Welcome to the program, Holly. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really
all the way
appreciate
from
it.
Flagstaff, Arizona, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Very exciting. I'm having a lot of fun building a map where everybody comes from. It's super exciting to see where
I
everybody
bet.
comes from.
Yeah.
So, a little bit about H.J. Corning. She can be found dancing in the woods and through life eating Montezuma's 100% chocolate and drinking Zevia. Anybody who eats chocolate is absolutely in my book, so good job.
Yeah. Yummy.
Then The Tree Said Hello is her debut novel. It is the first in a series. It sprouts from a life lived in the woods, hiking, backpacking, and just sitting under the trees away from civilization. She lives in the mountains in the Southwest with her engineer husband, rescue dog, and loving cat. Today she's going to be reading from her novel, The Trees Said Hello, which is women's fiction with a little bit of magic realism thrown in. This is a really interesting story. I put it on my TBR list right away. While you and I were talking in the green room, I added it to my list. So
thank you.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Sara works for a logging company and has deep ties to her timber harvesting community. When she starts hearing the trees talk, Sara discovers that some of the people she once called family will go to huge lengths to keep her quiet. Maxine just graduated from college and is out traveling in her van trying to figure out what to do next. She discovers a notebook that Sara hid away. Through Sara's journal, Maxine discovers a world she didn't know existed. One that few of us know, yet it flourishes close by. This is the inspiring story of two women on a quest to protect what they love and coming into powers that they didn't know existed, decades apart in very different worlds. Will they find their strength in time? I am so excited to hear you read this. It's going to be so much fun. And we'll talk a little bit when you're done. But if you will, please, when you're ready, take the microphone and read aloud.
All right. I will. Thank you. So I'm going to start at the beginning. Sara. Tuesday morning was lightly foggy, but I could already feel the heat rising from the road as Bessie, Clem, and I drove to Don's office on the other side of town. Clem was sniffing the air expectantly, like he knew something was about to happen. It was while I was out on one of my trips 5 years earlier that I'd found my dog Clem. He was just a little ball of fur on his own in the woods. I don't know how he survived. The coyotes must have thought he looked too strange to mess with them. The drool never stopped oozing from his mouth. One of his gums hung lower than the other, and the tops of his ears had been scorched off. I didn't even want to think how. But here he was on his own, only a few months old. I gave him some of my jerky and water, and by my feet he stayed from then on. Clem grew up to be an Akita, big and strong. His only strangeness was that he was afraid of the sound of plastic bags, and every once in a while, he just shook like he was having his own personal earthquake. He slumped to the ground, and in seconds he popped back up like nothing had happened at all and returned to whatever he was doing. He'd helped keep me warm on cold nights, and he'd licked away a lot of tears. The bluish paint on the siding where Don's office was desperately needed attention. Years of putting money into the business and not the space gave it a feeling of neglect. It was obvious that the moss-covered roof would need to be fixed sooner rather than later. Low key and low maintenance. The nondescript building reminded me of Don himself. In the door window, I caught a glimpse of the ends of my knife-cut hair hanging below my baseball cap. It had lightened up quite a bit in the last few weeks since I'd last seen a mirror. Luckily, I no longer cared that I looked like a struggling maple tree during a summer storm. Don had called me into his office the moment I got back into town. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Sara, we're going to have to let you go." I sat with my mouth agape, not knowing whether to cry or celebrate. I'd been waiting for this day, but I wasn't prepared. I knew it was coming. I just didn't want to see it. They hadn't been happy with my work for quite some time. I was saving too many trees, he said. How is it possible that's even a thing? But there it was. They weren't in the tree saving business. They were in the tree harvesting business, without which houses couldn't be built, paper couldn't be made. For God's sake, Sara, where do you think toilet paper comes from? Like that was going to change my mind. I spent weeks on end in the woods all around Washington, marking plots of trees ready to be cut. The Olympic Peninsula was my favorite area to work. The Sitka spruce, straight and strong, and a ready harbor from any storm. The enveloping red alders, creating tunnels like marriage bowers. Keeping the piercing sun off my skin, their trunks were eloquently curved as if they were always dancing in the wind. The subtle green moss covered their bark, providing a blanket of nourishment and wetness. On the Olympic Peninsula, the moisture dripped from the atmosphere. You could just lick the air and quench your thirst. Many of the red alders shot straight up and created an overlapping series of umbrellas, but some of them took another path. Their branches reached up and down and to the ground with bubbles and lumps and bumps. Like the people who color their hair, these were the artists of the alder world, creating their own path, providing nooks and crannies for nests and resting places for their animal friends. I'd felt like an empty pail for the past few months, just trying to keep everyone happy and stay in the box of how work and my family expected me to act. They really just wanted me to go back and be the mute Sara who kept to herself. I wished I could sometimes. My head was a swirl, my brain was buzzing. This is one reason I love being in the woods, far from the expectations of people. Among their thoughts and emotions, I lost track of my own. In the woods, I fit in and felt safe. As much as the Riley community was my family, I still felt like the adopted alien. The tension between my brother Brian and I had escalated to heights I didn't even know existed. Mom was caught in the middle, so she did nothing. Once I started hearing them, it was increasingly hard to do my job, but I didn't know how to quit. Guess I didn't have to. I wanted to protect the trees. They'd become my best friend and wise counsel. I marked fewer and fewer for cutting, but I knew I wasn't really protecting them. I at least felt like I was doing something. It was better than doing nothing. Before I heard the trees, I worked in a sort of quiet contemplation. It was just Clem and I walking in the woods for days at a time. Clem was a great help in my marking off for the tree cuttings. I taught him to carry the line and where to stop. It really reduced the number of steps I took, and it really increased the amount of food I carried. He carried his own, of course, but he always wanted some of mine. My fault, I guess, for giving him jerky that first day. Now I feared I'd never get back to that place of quiet I had before they opened me up to a whole new world. These days, it seemed like a distant cousin I'd met when I was 5. I had a faint recollection of our time together, but couldn't remember if we had anything in common. I needed more time. I thought I did anyway. Now I needed to grow up and hit life head on, let the things that had transpired trickle down into my bones and fibers, trust my gut, and move from there. You know how when you look back and find something was perfect? It was unexpected, but perfect? I'd spent my 20s working for the Dittons in the woods on my own. They paid for my college. My entire world was just sitting there waiting for me to arrive after I graduated. I thought I was the luckiest person alive. Then they told me my job was to spend a week in the woods surveying the trees. What's the catch? No catch, Don had told me. You'll just be out in the woods by yourself for a week with no way of talking to anybody. And why doesn't anybody else want this job? Because they don't want to leave their families, he responded. I beamed. When do I start? I couldn't believe I got to sleep outside for weeks and they paid me well. I had nothing to spend my money on, so it just accumulated. Mom said she was investing it. I didn't know what that meant and didn't really care. I had everything I needed. I worked in the place where I would vacation. And when I wasn't in the woods, I was at Mom's. So even though the way I understood trees and animals had completely changed, I couldn't bring it myself to quit. I couldn't imagine what else I'd do. The trees had become something so much more than a job or things I studied. But I really didn't know how to explain that to anybody then. We're really sorry, Sara. Don's words broke my reminiscing. Don's limp cheeks and compassionate eyes hadn't changed since I was a kid. It was almost like I could remember looking into them at my baptism. He'd been my kind dad, since my biological dad couldn't be. We think of you as family, but we're a business and we have workers and shareholders to support, and that equals trees. Here's a check for 6 months of your vacation you banked. I wish I could pay out your sick time. You never missed a day. I looked at Don's chin as words poured out of his mouth. Don looked away. Sara, I'm sorry. I wish I didn't have to do this. I feel like I'm firing a daughter. I don't know what you're going to do. Don't know if anyone in the logging industry will have you. I wish you'd change your mind about all this. His voice filled with regret. How can I just change my mind about something that was so real? I just wanted people to know what I knew without thinking I was nuts. That was long ago, and it's where this story begins. Maxine. I should have picked a better date to meet Detroit, my dad. Well, look at you. You're an adult and all. Looks like your mom did a mighty fine job of raising you. We were sitting in a little local restaurant. Detroit had suggested we meet him here when I told him over the phone I was coming to meet him. Yes, she did, I responded, surprised by his demeanor. Was this why Mom tried to keep me from meeting my dad? There was the ordering of coffee and pancakes in between these words, not interesting enough to go into. Due to his name, it hadn't been much of a challenge to find my biological father, even though Mom would only tell me he was in Texas. The relationship was an 18-year-old's mistake, she said, except that I got you. When the air between us became silent, Detroit asked, so tell me about all the boys you've been dating. I date girls, not boys. I lowered my eyes. I didn't know how he would respond, and it was weird to think my dad didn't know this important detail about me. His full cup of hot coffee crashed down on the table, splashed and scalded my hands filled with a pancaked fork. You kidding? My kid? A kid with my genes is a queer? Your mom should have let me raise you. I wouldn't have raised no sissy. He was yelling like he wanted the whole town to hear. I put my trembling fork down and put my hands on my forehead. I raised my eyes looking for an exit, but the whole restaurant was staring at us. Now everyone there knew I was gay, and in this area, I wasn't sure that was a good thing. The server rushed over, her cowboy boots pounding her arrival. What's gotten into you, Detroit? You better leave me a big tip for having to clean up your mess. Her brown plastic name tag crookedly pressed against the chest of her plaid shirt. Dad pinched her on the butt of her strained Levi's. She squealed and laughed. Watch where you put those hands. I'll have Buster after you, said her mouth, but the rest of her face seemed to enjoy the attention. I ain't scared of that old wussy man of yours, replied Detroit with a big grin on his face. You come over anytime, and I'll show you what it means to be a man. He scooted over in the booth and nodded towards me. Looks like I'm going to have to teach my daughter here, too. Her mom done sissified her. Look at her with her short hair and t-shirt. He shook his head in disgust. Detroit, you have a kid? You never talked about him. Sue smiled at me. Well, her mama done took off when she got pregnant. Didn't even know she existed until Max here called me one day, wanting to come meet me. Detroit picked up his coffee cup with his bony, dirt-stained hands and slurped the last bit that hadn't spilled. Well, any kid of Detroit's is welcome here. What's your name? Sue sat down next to me and put one hand on top of mine. Her hands, porcelain white with long red fingernails, were a stark contrast to my stubby tanned fingers with chewed nails. Maxine, I go by Max. I looked at her, suspicious of her motives. Well, Max, welcome to Wasco. Your breakfast is on the house. You got a beau? My oldest is about your age. May have to fix you up. Sue patted my hand. No, ma'am, I don't date. I stuttered. Never mind her, Sue. That's a damn good idea, fixing her up with that Jack of yours. Every girl in the county wants to go out with him, captain of the football team and all. Detroit slapped the table as if he just made everything perfect. I just looked down at my lap, twisting my hands, wanting to run out of there and go home. I came on this trip to gain some self-reliance, to feel like an adult capable of making my own choices and accepting the consequences of those choices. I wanted the adventure of the unknown. I wasn't ready to settle down. There was a whole wide world beyond my sheltered life, and I wanted to experience it. If I'd only known what was going to happen. Yeah, Max, you'll stay at my place tonight, and we'll double date me and my babe, Franny, and you and Jack. We'll have a great time. Detroit took a big mouthful of his pancakes and shook his head with pride. I was so excited that Dad wanted me to stay at his place, and more, that he wanted to introduce me to his girlfriend and go out together. I thought he just needed to get to know me. I guess I'd lived a shielded life. Sara. Where is she? My brother Brian slammed open the screen door, shattering the peaceful afternoon. Sara, where the hell are you? I'm so tired of you embarrassing me. He was stomping all over the worn wood floors below my room. You've done it again in the worst way. He seemed to just be shouting into the air. I thought you normaled up, but no, you got to go around talking about trees speaking to you and needing to protect the woods to a logging company. He banged his fist against the wall. Brian, calm down. Mom had been reading on the porch swing. Brian hadn't even noticed her as he whizzed by. She was trying to talk calmly, but I knew she was as scared of Brian as I was. It gave me chills to think of what he was capable of. Somewhere along the way, Brian lost any compassion. Dad probably beat it out of him. I couldn't really blame Brian for how he was, but that was so long ago. Dad died and Mom had been loving towards him. Why wasn't that enough? I couldn't begin to understand his pain, but it didn't make me any less frightened. There was a time when he took care of me, protected me from the school bullies. But when the Dentons offered to pay for my college, and then they had a job ready for me when I graduated, that was it. They never offered to pay for him to go to college. Our relationship became cold and distant after that. It hurt. I tried so hard for him not to be jealous of me. I hid myself. I stayed distant and in the woods so that he could shine. But he never really did. He focused on me with this jealous rage. You get everything you want. People just hand you stuff. I hate you, you brat. It was a knife in my heart. I wasn't special. I didn't know why things came so easily to me. They just did. I'm sorry, Mom. I tried to keep him from coming here, said my younger brother, Joey. If I didn't drive him here, he was going to drive himself, and that seemed even worse. Joey always quivered behind Brian, like he had an invisible umbilical cord attached to him, and Brian was what gave him life. After all the years I've known Joey, I know nothing about him. I only know what he mimicked in Brian. I felt sorry for him. I yelled down from the top of the stairs, not knowing if it was safe to go down. Brian, I've done nothing to you. I've told the truth, whether or not anyone believes it. I've been writing an article hoping to explain things to the community. I wasn't sure that the local public paper would publish it, but I had to at least try. Word had gotten around that I was trying to leave perfectly good trees when I worked for Denton's, and I'd become the talk of the town. I could smell Pabst Blue Ribbon beer leaking out of Brian's tan pores at the bottom of the stairs. PBR was his favorite beer, even though he could afford better. He'd been wearing his favorite trucker hat since he started hauling logs 15 years ago. It was more dirt color than anything else now. I wasn't even sure I remembered what color his hair was. I never saw him without that thing. Sara, Brian raised his hand towards me like he was mimicking what Dad used to do to him. I am so sick of your shit. Why can't you just be normal? Why do you have to go acting like you're all special and wanting attention? Funny, he thought I did this for attention. This kind of attention I didn't want or need. Ever since I've been fired, you'd think I'd slept with everyone's husband or something. If I went into a store, people started whispering or shushing their voices. People I'd known all my life and I considered family now would barely talk to me. Brian, come over here and sit down. Let me get you some coffee. Mom patted the rocking chair in the corner of the screened-in porch, the one that Mima used to rock us in and sing us lullabies. I had to fight back to hold the tears. I wish Mima was here. She'd stand up for me. She'd make everyone shiver in their boots for ever thinking bad about me. My Mima was my hero. Nothing bothered her. She was completely confident in her ability to figure out anything. People and animals loved her equally, and she loved them. Mima made all their clothes and could smoke a deer with equal skill. Mom, you stay out of this. Brian's voice was slurred. This was between Sara and me. I'm so sick of you protecting her and giving her everything she wants. He continued to stare at me from the bottom of the worn oak stairs, daring me to come down. She's gone too far with this. She's made me the laughing stock of the whole damn company. You should hear what they're saying. His voice fell away, and I almost felt sorry for him. There was barely enough light in the stairwell for me to make out his gristly brown beard that filled half his face. His plaid shirt was barely big enough to cover his belly. Mom put out a hand. Brian, I'm not protecting anybody. I just don't see a need to fight, especially in your condition. She lowered her voice, but not enough I couldn't hear. Joey, would you go get some coffee and water, please? And bring some of my pie and plates for everyone. There's nothing a fresh peach pie can't fix. The shaking in her voice betrayed her words. Mom and her cooking, she always believed it made everyone better. I wished it was that simple. When my grandpa built this house, he started with the screened-in porch and added from there. There were big windows that looked out into the porch from any place downstairs. This allowed Mima to see her beloved trees, even from the top of the stairs. I couldn't have been more appreciative of this fact as I was right now. Seeing those trees gave me strength when my knees were trying to melt. Mom, I'm not going to sit and listen to Brian chew me out when I did nothing wrong. I'll be in my room. Clem, who'd been sitting next to me at the top of the stairs, voicing a low growl, almost ran over me getting back to my bedroom door. Brian took 2 steps up the stairs and continued yelling. Oh, no, you don't, miss. I don't give a shit about anybody else. You need to listen to me. You go back there and tell those people you're sorry and you made it all up. He pounded on the solid oak railing. I will not have people laughing at me because of you. I don't know what force kept him from coming all the way up, but I was grateful. I shouted down as Clem cowered to my room. That's your problem, Brian. I will not apologize. I did nothing wrong. The more my brother yelled, the more confident I felt. Oh, come on, Sara. Mom was scooting around the kitchen, getting plates and coffee. What could it hurt to apologize, just so everyone gets along? My mom, always the appeaser. She just wanted everyone to get along and play nice, no matter how much it meant burying who you were. No, Mom, I yelled. I've been told to get along with everyone else my whole life, and I'm sick of it. I started down the stairs to face my accusers head on. I'm tired of being the way everyone else thinks I should. Nobody listens to me. No one gives a damn what I have to say, and I'm sick of it. I ran down the stairs right past Brian. As I passed my mom, I blurted, I did nothing wrong. As I headed out the screen porch doors, tears streamed down my face. I just wanted the pain to stop. I just wanted someone to care what I had to say, to hear and believe me for once. I ran through the tree shadows and out to the dock so the stars could blanket me with their knowing and understanding. I curled up with my knees to my chest. Please help me. Please, why doesn't anyone care? My body trembled on the hard surface of the dock. It suddenly felt like someone was staring at me. I cocked my head up and found the piercing yellow eyes of a great gray owl staring into me from his perch in a spruce tree. I covered my ears and lowered my head. No, don't talk to me. Everyone thinks I'm nuts. Please, please go talk to them so they know, so they can hear you too. They couldn't hear me even if I tried to talk with them, Sara. His voice was soft like a baby's coo. I don't care. I shook my head. Please go away. I can't take it anymore. I just can't take people making fun of me and calling me names. It hurts. It hurts too much. Please, please go away and stop talking to me. My stomach clenched as I sobbed the words. He didn't leave. He stayed there silent, as if to comfort and protect me should Brian come looking for me. Sometime later, the moon's rays woke me up and the owl was still silently there. I didn't know what to do. I was scared to go back to the house, so I curled under the branches of a nearby pine tree and went back to sleep with the smell of sap and dirt filling my nostrils. And that's all for today.
Thank you so much, Holly. That you have written some really compelling characters. I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the book. Tell me, what was your favorite part about writing this story?
I think just kind of hearing the story and seeing how the story enveloped and getting to know the characters and what they were about. I really enjoyed getting to know them and what they did. And yeah.
Very cool. What was your inspiration for the story?
It's just one that came to me while we were backpacking. My husband and I backpack a lot. And while we were out on backpacking trips, the story just kind of, when I'd just be sitting in silence in the woods, it just started coming and it just started developing in my head. So
it's wonderful when our imaginary friends talk to us, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Now I understand there's another book coming and it's going to be the prequel. How soon do you expect that book to be out?
I'm hoping by the beginning of next year.
Perfect. So when the book is released, you'll come back and read a little bit for us?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you.
That would be great. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you have a wonderful day in Flagstaff.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. Have a great day.
All right. Bye.